welcome to Teterboro and some more vintage flying. Have you heard about this? This is Wing 42's Boeing. This is the Boeing 247D. This is a 1930s era airplane, and believe you me, we're not talking about GPS. No reason to bring your McDu manual on this particular flight at all. Hello, my name is Dave. I do the spy flights over on Twitch, and I've been really kind of interested in this airplane for a while. Let me show you why. If you're an airplane geek and stuff, there's a chance that maybe you have a copy of this book. This is a book that was put together by United Airlines, and there's a whole section here on the 247. And so I've known about the 247. This is an airplane that they've had for a while. It didn't used to have that nice blue look there. It used to have sort of a gray look because this was originally obviously built as a military airplane, but then they started to roll it out and flew it down to Hollywood and got actors and movie stars to sit in the nose of the airplane and roll it out as a passenger flight. And I got to tell you, I'm kind of excited and a little bit geeky about this airplane. It is not the easiest airplane to fly. So the first thing to do is to check your ego at the door and turn off damage and stuff like that. I'll show you how to do that. But we're going to do a little flight here. We're going to do United Airlines Flight 5. This was New York to Chicago with a stop in Cleveland. This is Microsoft Flight Simulator, so I'm not using anything other than toolbar pushback, which I don't think we're going to need with this airplane. I am going to use a little nav map on this. This is something, and the developers actually suggest that you have a little nav map. I did have a little bit of sky vector here, but not much. And the other thing is the Wing 42 documents. The documents folder for this airplane are absolutely fantastic. There is a huge documents folder in here. This is just the main tutorial page right here. Here is the radio range tutorial. So, you know, this is before the days of non-direct. Well, I don't really think they had non-directional beacons. They had this radio range. This was like the forerunner to everything. No VORs, none of that. So this is a really good little thing to look at. Here's the worldwide radio facilities and charts. So if you go all the way to the bottom of this PDF file, no, you need to look at the radio facilities for 1944. Okay, this is page 25. So let's go all the way to the bottom. And let's see, okay, here's the map I wanted to show you. So these were the charts way back when in the 1930s. So Boston, Cleveland, Chicago. So we're going to actually use a little bit of New York and Cleveland. Chart 23 and chart 25 is what they had. So let's go and roll this back up, and we start, that's page 84, 15. So yeah, going through a PDF file. Okay, 24, 25. So here's our chart right here. And basically we're going to start down here in the lower corner. They took off from Teterboro. United Airlines flew out of Teterboro Airport to go over to Cleveland and then to Chicago. So they had these airways. And anyhow, so that's another thing that we'll look at here on this particular flight. We are flying the 247D. This is a really interesting airplane. It's 51 feet long, 74 feet wingspan, 10 passengers, and the seats didn't look all that comfortable to me. The maximum speed was 225 miles an hour. Yes, they measured it in miles per hour in this airplane. Cruise speed was 189 miles an hour, and the ceiling was 25,000 feet, although I suspect that some of the passengers probably got a little bit on the lightheaded side. So our flight today is New York to Cleveland. We're going to use the documents. Not much of sky vector. We'll use a little nav map. I don't think we're going to need toolbar pushback or anything like that. Before we take off, if you have never done one of these little cold and dark and first look videos with me, the whole goal of this is for you to fire up your copy of Microsoft Flight Simulator and fly along with me, okay? Now, this is a complex airplane, but it is 1930s technology. That means that there are an awful lot of rabbit holes to jump down. I'm just learning about this radio range navigation that they were using, and I am by no means a master at it, so we'll be using a little nav map map as our way to get over to Cleveland. And as always, I do like to say that this is not about the right way versus the wrong way. When I'm doing videos like this is simply what has been working for me in an effort to help you get your airplane off the ground, and not, flames and stuff. So fly along with me. The whole cool part about doing videos like this on YouTube is you can pause the video and catch up. You can even rewind the video very easily. If in case you might have missed a little button push or something. So I do suggest that you use that. Also, do your own hometown flight. Take this airplane off from your hometown airport and go to another airport. And if you really want to jump down a rabbit hole, use the old school charts. And then, as I always like to say, please feel free to join us over on Twitch for the spy flights. 1900 Zulu is our departure time, Tuesdays through Sundays, unless the real world gets in the way, and that doesn't happen too often. Here is our route of flight. We're going to be departing from Teterborough's runway 6. Our cruise altitude is a whopping 6,500 feet on this airplane. So it was not a very high cruising airplane, at least not on this flight. NK, XA, BF, and CT. Those are the radio range navigation frequencies that I'm going to attempt to tune in. Again, no guarantees that I'm going to make that work. This is a 2-hour and 36-minute flight. About halfway through the flight, we're going to stop the video and just fly along, and then start about 175 miles away from Cleveland. Our total flight distance today is going to be 369 miles. Is what we got going on. And we'll take a little look at the history of the plane and the airfares of the day. We'll also take a look at some of the movies. We'll just yammer about that as we kind of go along. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into the 247D and see what we can't do. This is a really cool airplane. I do suggest that you have some views set up. So use the number pad views. This is my main view right here. This is sort of like a look at the cockpit view. That's view number 1. Number 2 is sort of the little center console there. Here's number 3, which I call the big instruments view. This is the navigation view. Instruments there. This is the radio. Okay, I think I've got it set up, but we shall see. Here is the control pedestal. So my controls that I have set up, I'm using the Thrustmaster Airbus controls. So I've got 2 engines. I have a second set, and so this is what's controlling my props. The speed brake lever, that is my mixture control, okay? And that's everything. I do have the landing gear, but I'm not going to pull that up right now because that would cause troubles, and we don't want to have troubles. I do have one wing view set up here so that you can kind of look at the cabin. This is the old airplane here that basically you had to step over the wing spars to get up to the first 3 rows. So you had to go over that wing spar there. That had to have been, relatively entertaining for the passengers. Let's see. They did have a no smoking and fasten seatbelt light, even in those old days. This airplane also had a bathroom, and there is a seat down here. The flight attendant sat on that little seat there. The bathroom does not have a flushing toilet, but apparently you can get the soap dispenser to work in this airplane. So that's one of the cool things that we've got going on there. If you go over to my Discord channel, link in the description below, the spy flow for this airplane is already uploaded to a special channel over on my Discord channel that I have called it's called Checklists. Actually, I didn't set it up. One of the Spy Flight's great moderators, Keela, set all that up. But I'm starting to put, this is my list, this is my to-do list. And this is going to get us there. The radio stuff is not set up in my Spy Flow here, but we'll see how this works, okay? Let's see, this is a tail dragger airplane. It's actually, as far as tail draggers are concerned, pretty forgiving, but I will tell you that the ground handling, this airplane does not turn on a dime. So, be ready for that, okay? And beyond that, I think it's time to go ahead and start doing airplane things. So the first thing that you really need to do is in the cockpit. I also really like the controls here, but I tend to turn off the controls. They just kind of get in the way. So reach up here with your pointer and get the clipboard, and then kind of look down here. You might want to zoom in just a little bit. Here is our clipboard. And so this is going to give you some nice information about the airplane. Let's go over here, and here is how we're going to load up the airplane. Okay, so this airplane remembers what happened on your last flight. So as you can see, I used a fair amount of oil on my last flight. And so I'm going to top off the oil. Now, there's different kinds of oil viscosity that you can use on this airplane. So you can change the oil. I do not claim to be an expert at changing oil viscosity and stuff like that. So we'll leave that for a video for another day. How's that sound? We can go ahead, and this is where you would load passengers. So what I've done is I've topped off my oil. I've topped off my fuel tanks, and we're going to have passenger 1, 2, passenger 2, passenger 3, passenger 4, passenger 5, passenger 8, 9, and 7. Let's do 6. We'll have 1 seat empty. Nah, it's going to be a full flight. So let's go ahead and do that. So this gives us our empty weight, crew, passengers, baggage, and that's all we need to do. So this should also take care of the passengers' bags and stuff. So now what we do is we go and we make it show. It's my best Jean-Luc Picard for you. But they've got to be Star Trek fans here. So let's go ahead and make it show. That's a pretty bad Picard, I know. Sorry. Now, if you come out and watch the show, so the door's going to open. You're going to see some stairs show up. You might also see, okay, yep, there's the stairs. So there's the stairs for the passengers. So that's good. Let's go over here. There is a chance we might see some other things. There's a cargo cabin here. Oh, look at that. I think they're doing, it looks like they're filling gas. So they're putting gas in. So, yep, there's the gas tank. They're putting in some gas. They're probably going to refill the oil. So all of that works pretty good, which I think is really neat. Okay, so we've gone, and that's our fuel, our oil, our passengers, and our cargo. Now, I'm going to kind of wait until all of this gets done, because in the middle of all of this, you know, we're going to have to start the airplane, and the airplane battery apparently did not last forever. So when you turn on the lights and stuff, it's time to start the engine. So the passengers, I guess the passengers would get on the airplane cold and dark. So let's see, we've got passengers. We got 3 more passengers that have to get on the airplane. I don't know. I'm one of those passengers that as soon as it's time to board, I get in my seat and I get ready to go. Hate having people wait for me, but sometimes it takes forever for passengers to load in some of these sim airplanes. So all of this is looking good. There's also some cool stuff here that shows what your ground crew is doing. So there is an awful lot to this airplane. It's not just the airplane. Oh, look at that. They have boarded the passengers, and now they're closing the cabin door. So the cabin door is closed, and I think that the airplane is now ready to go and do that airplane thing. There is no GPS. There's no external. There is one thing that you can do. You can fly this on VATSIM, but it's going to have to be VFR. And if you go down to one of the last pages of this, let's see. This is where you would top off oil and change oil. You could change your oil and stuff like that, so we could change it. So let's see. We are flying in basically it's 10 degrees, 20 degrees. So it's we have SAE 30 oil. This is 20 degrees to 95. I wonder if we should call it SAE 10W. Because it's not the warmest of days here. I don't know if we should change the oil. Change the oil to that or what. Maybe I should, but I'm not going to do it today because that's just too big of a rabbit hole. Okay, and but this is the one thing I wanted to show you over here. Okay, so you could fly this on VATSIM. This is your transponder. They did put in a transponder so you can fly on VATSIM. Guess what? You can't fly IFR. You can fly VFR on VATSIM, but this is how you can go and fly this thing over on VATSIM. I probably should go and change the I should probably go and change the oil, but I don't know enough about that, so I'm going to leave that alone. If you want to experience without malfunctions, uncheck the options. I've unchecked them all. This is what I meant about checking your ego at the door in this airplane. I'm not kidding. If you don't do this, you're going to have flames shooting out of your engine here. And so we're going to leave it here on the engine startup page. Okay, so make sure your parking brakes are set. So parking brakes are set, and it's time to turn on the battery master. Here's your battery master switch. Battery master is on. Then you can come over here and we'll do the nav lights. Nav lights are on. Make sure that parking brake is set. You come over here and you look over at this, and this is how you do your fuel. So you pull this out, and you just pull this out, and that adds a little bit of pressure, but it doesn't stay that way. So there's one tank. Now the one on the right side, you notice that's 135, this is 70. When you pull that out and pressurize it, it's a full tank. And then if you come over here and switch it, you have to pull it again because there's two over on the right side of the airplane. That's your auxiliary tank over there. So we've checked our fuel. All of that is good. The fuel selector, let's go and send fuel to both engines. And then we're going to go and we're going to start the airplane on the auxiliary tank. So there's the auxiliary tank there. And now we've got to start wobbling. This thing has something called the wobble pump. And a lot of older airplanes did. This is how you pressurize your fuel system, okay? Before the days of fuel pumps. So you go ahead and start wobbling. And what this is going to do is this is going to go and it's going to get pressure in your fuel tanks. So we have now wobbled. I don't know if that was the term, but that's what we're going to use here. Now, we got to go over here, and we're going to, let's see if there's a way to do this. Okay, so come on over here and turn on this valve. This is the primer, and we're going to prime the left side first. And I'm using the mouse wheel, the little thumb drive here, the thumb wheel on this. Up, you see the fuel pressure? It's already down. I think you have to keep this up here. So the co-pilot's job was to wobble. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 good ones on the engine primer. Let's wobble a little bit more. So keep the pressure up in there. That's good. And now we're going to go here and do the engine ignition. And we're going to turn on the magnetos. Okay, so propellers all the way forward. Mixture is rich. Open your throttles to about 25%. And let's see. Let's get ready to wobble again. Now, maybe I'm wobbling too much, but there you go. Okay, let's get the clipboard. And now we're going to go and wind up the flywheel. So our ground crew is going to go out and get a ladder. Keep wobbling. And keep the pressure up. And I'm going to turn up the sound on the airplane. And you can see, you can't see the guy, but you see how the crank is turning out there? They're spinning up the flywheel for us. Wobble a little bit more. And when this turns green, let's see if we did everything right. We got an engine start. So look down at your engines. Now get that left RPM, that throttle. You want to drop that down to about 1,000 RPM. Now this is one of those delayed reaction kinds of things, and you don't want to go all the way, don't roll your throttles all the way down, okay? 1,000 RPM, maybe a little less. But as the engine warms up a little bit, one of the things that's going to happen is the RPM's going to change a little bit. Okay, let's get rid of this for a second. Now we're going to go and we're going to switch the primer over to the other side. Let's see, we got to wobble here a little bit here. So let's wobble over here. Okay, so we've wobbled over there and we're going to prime the right engine. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've done this airplane 5 times. I'm finding that 4 is about the best. It says 4 to 5 when it's cold. Okay, so we're done wobbling. Now let's get the ground crew to go over, and they're going to start spinning that airplane up, that engine up too. Watch your fuel pressure here. More wobbling may be needed. Let's go ahead and turn on the magneto. The magnetos are up. Fuel pressure's up. We're waiting for this thing to turn green. See, he's got to pick up the ladder, and he's got to walk around the airplane, put the ladder back up, and then insert the big crank. Okay, the flywheel's good. Let's try and start this engine. And we can put that away. And we've got both engines going. So now let's roll this engine RPM down to about 1,000%. 1,000 RPM, not percent. I'm going to be mixing my numbers here. Okay, so now we're right around 1,000 RPM on both of them. And our throttles are good. We're going to go over here and we're going to do the engine selector to neutral. That kind of puts a cap on this, and we're going to turn off the primer system. Okay, so all of those are good to go. And after start, now this old airplane, the engine oil pressure and temperature is a big deal. So here's your oil pressure and your oil temperature. And so you're going to want to keep those in a good spot. Let's see, here's for this airplane. If your oil temperature is too high, you do what's called open the oil shutters. That's down here. So right now, our oil temperatures are cold. Well, the oil temperatures are actually kind of warm right now. So I think we do want to open these a little bit. So let's see, oil pressure. So I think we're going to want to open these just a bit here. And so let's open them halfway. I'm still making this up as I go. Okay, and let's see if we can't get some oil temperature. Now, you do want to warm that up just a little bit. Okay, the altimeter. So this airplane uses inches of mercury. So here we are, inches of mercury. And let's see here. It should be here. You know what? I'm going to just leave it at normal. It's 1013. 1013. There we go. And there's our altimeter setting. I'm sorry, that was cheap. I'm still learning that one. Okay, carburetor temperatures are still good. It is warming up. Throttles to idle. So I think we're ready to go and do some stuff. Look outside the airplane. Ailerons. Rudder. Okay, all that looks good. So we just did our control checks. That's a good thing to do. Now let's go ahead and try and do what's called the run-up. Okay, so we're going to leave fuel on the auxiliary tank. Elevators go to full back, and the RPM goes to 200. 2,000. We've got the parking brakes on. We've also got the chalk set. Did you notice how fast it moved forward? Okay, there's 2,000 RPM. Okay, we open the oil shutters completely now. And yeah, the engines have to be warmed up on this airplane. Okay, mixture rich, about 4,000 feet, magnetos. So magnetos, you're gonna look for the little magneto drop. It should be an RPM drop when you do the magnetos on each engine. And then also you would run your carb heat. Oh no, you cycle the props at this point, right? Yeah, it's props. Prop levers. And part of the reason that you're doing this is to also circulate oil. Okay, so we've cycled the props, and then the carburetor heat is right here. So cycle the carburetor heat. And you're also supposed to look for a drop. And it could be, oh crap. that didn't destroy my landing gear. Okay, I think we're good to go. And throttles back down to just above 1,000 RPM. And be very careful with the throttles. You don't just jam them all the way down. So as you roll these down, it drops really quickly. I'm going to put these stick back to neutral and about 1,000 RPM. If it goes below like 750 or something like that, the engines just stop. Okay, we also have a directional gyro here. So look up here and look at your heading. So our heading is right now 227 degrees, I guess. I don't know if I did that right or not, so we'll dial this to 227 degrees on the directional gyro. Now you can dial it after you do the after you use your little thumb wheel. If you drag this thing back and forth, that sets it a little bit. It's more of a fine setting. Okay, so I think we're ready to go. Shall we try and taxi? So we got to go over here and we've got to get the clipboard, and we're going to go to the previous page and they're going to pull the chocks. Before you do, parking brake is on. Okay, parking brake is on and they're going to pull the chocks. And it takes a second. It's not instant gratification on this airplane, believe me. Okay, so we're right out here. We're going to have to turn around. Actually, no, we make a left turn and there's our runway. Runway 6, we're not going to need the full length of the runway. So, feet on the toe brakes. Parking brakes are off. And as soon as you release the brakes, it'll start going. So get your, you'll also need differential braking set up on your rudder pedals if you can get it. And if you take a look, you can see our tail wheel is all the way over here like this. Do not. Don't do the fast taxi kind of a thing. You really don't, patience is a virtue on this airplane. Otherwise, all of a sudden, you'll be going at warp factor 10. And see, I just moved them up a little bit, and you saw I started really going forward. So I'm using a little differential braking and trying to be very careful because I've spent so much time in the grass in this airplane. Get a little more momentum. There we go. And maybe I'm just being too overly careful with this airplane at the moment, but seriously, you'd see already how fast we're going on the taxi. This thing also rattles around. I should have looked to see if there was anybody coming. And like I said, as you can see, this thing does not turn on a dime. Shall we go to Cleveland? Okay, so after departure, we're going to basically turn south, and our flight plan means that we're going to turn south to a heading of about 187 degrees. So we probably ought to get going. Props are full. Let's go and slowly take off. Stick all the way back. This airplane is one of those that flies itself off the ground. But that's okay. All right, we're looking for 187 degrees, so a nice little turn to get us to our first waypoint. And this is all based on the tutorial PDF that comes with this airplane. So this is their entire flight. Okay, here we are coming around. Manifold pressure. And that should be right around 187 degrees. Okay, manifold pressure, that's should be about 36. So I'm doing a little bit too much here. So 36, there's 1,000 feet. Okay, so after that, parking brakes is, that looks good. Now it should be about 32, so it's a little high. Throttle's back just a bit. Proper RPM should now be down to about 2,100. So I'm just barely touching my props down to 2,100. Okay, that's good. The oil pressure is a little bit high, so we should probably think about closing the oil shutters. Maybe not all the way. Let's go halfway and see what happens. There is New York City. Stealth shooter is up flying today. How's our climb? Not so bad. It's 2,000. We're going to 6,500 on today's flight. I'm also using the moving map and little nav map. Oh, am I finding that helpful? Now then, I'm slowly also reducing my pressure on the stick. If you want to know if your trim is set up, there's the trim handle right there. Yes, we're still doing gasoline out of the auxiliary tank for a second. Now I've trimmed all the pressure off of my, off the stick. And now I'm trying to trim the nose down a little bit. No autopilot on this airplane to climb at about 1,500 feet per minute. All right, so there's our climb. Now we're going down too much. You know, that's a little too much trim. Trim is pretty good on this. Okay, we're coming up on our first checkpoint here in Little Nav Map. So definitely not even having time to do the basic stuff, the radio. But we're about ready to make a turn to 244 degrees. Little Nav Map is your friend on this one. And I'm just learning Little Nav Map as well. Let's go and do a turn, 244 degrees. There's our directional gyro, looking good there. Passengers are getting a fairly nice view. Probably could have gone a little bit more. Once you get even good with this airplane, basically, you can go and start throwing in real-world weather and gusty winds and all the other stuff. But for today, call me a big chicken, but there you go. There, that looks a little better. Okay, so we're looking good. How's our climb? We're at 4,500, so that's not so bad. Once we get leveled off, we'll take a look at some of these other things. How is our oil? Okay, oil pressure is a little bit high at the moment. So, our oil, let's see, higher oil temperature, we need to lower. So let's go ahead and let's go and close these off a little bit. Should give us a little more oil temperature and less oil pressure. Flying the airplane is a full-time job. No autopilot. You can trim. Okay, we're at 4,500. We're going to 6,500. Oil temperature. We need temperature and lower oil pressure, so we should have these closed. These should just be closed for the moment. And as we climb, let's go ahead and lean the mixture just a little bit. So I just move my mixture down a tad as we're climbing. Basically, your throttles, you're going to keep your throttles here at the bottom of the white arc over here on manifold pressure. And then as we get to cruise, we'll reduce our props. I believe you want the props to go down to 1,800 RPM. 1,800 RPM is what you're going to want as you get a little bit closer to your cruise. So I'm actually getting close, and so we're going to reset that and kind of inch our way into our final cruising altitude. And by the way, if all of a sudden that you've noticed that you can't change your prop pitch, it's because you didn't cycle the props on the run-up and got the oil going, and I think that tends to seize it up because this is the first time I've actually had decent control of the props. So, okay, we're coming up on 5,500. We're still inching our way up at about 250 feet per minute, so that's not bad. I don't need to actually get there for instant gratification. Next course heading is 284 degrees, so I'm a little bit off. As we leave New York City behind. Okay, how is the fuel over on the auxiliary tank? And a little below 6. So we'll probably shift over to the main tank before too long. Let's do our turn to 284 degrees, and I'll show you where it is that I'm getting these 284 degrees. It's also 10 o'clock. This is also 10 o'clock local time. And 10 o'clock local time is the departure time, the original departure time for United Airlines Flight 10. How about that? 5, not 10. A little bit of nose up trim. 1,800 RPM. We could just move the throttles a touch closer. Oil pressure is a little bit weird still, so I don't think I got that right. Our heading's pretty good. So we're slowly inching our way in. We're not being a precision pilot right now. And here's my little nav map set up. So I went and followed the tutorial, and I've got all of our checkpoints here in the flight plan. Little nav map is a very valuable tool. I definitely suggest using this. It took this airplane for me to finally get it going. The cool part about little nav map is it's free, and I really like that. It's an incredibly good resource. Still climbing. How's this oil pressure thing? Oil temperature. Oil pressure is the priority, so this is a problem right now. I need a lower oil pressure, so our shutters are closed. And maybe these are starting to react. I'm using my aileron trim a little bit too to level out the wings. Speed's good, and I'm slowly, you see we're slowly getting to 6,500, so I'm just doing little minute taps of my elevator trim so that we can go ahead and hold it. This is not going to hold your exact altitude. Okay, it's not like an Airbus. You're going to flutter back and forth. If you're good, you're going to be fluttering about 100 feet either side of the altitude that you want to be at. And I don't know if fluttering is the right word, but that's what works for us right now. Okay, so this looks good. Yes, the thing is bouncing back and forth. These airplanes vibrated. So if you wanted a mixed drink, just set it down on your tray table and it would mix your drink for you, I guess. I don't know that it would vibrate, your, the fillings out of your teeth, but apparently there was some real vibration. Okay, and so now we're holding at about 6,400. So I'm slowly trying to tap my climb and descend here. We're not doing a very good job of holding our course heading. Okay, there we go. There, we're climbing there. Now let's see if it starts to go down. Let's tap it down a little bit. Okay, there goes our trim down just a bit. To get your private pilot's license, when they assign you an altitude, you're supposed to hold your altitude within 200 feet of the assigned altitude. So we haven't busted it yet, but now let's see if this thing wobbles up and down, back and forth here. Again, I don't know if wobble is the right term, but that's the one we're going to use. Okay, the throttles, manifold pressure should be up here to about 28. So we're at 28 there. Our prop RPM is supposed to be 1,800. So our props are a little high. So I'm going to roll my props back a bit. I'm doing these things very gently. Just gentle. Okay, now you can see my oil pressure is starting to go down. So that's good. And we're going down way too much. So let's do a quick tap on the trim. We're getting off course. We were supposed to be holding 284 degrees. We're not even close to 284 degrees. You see how much work this airplane is? Okay, so it's going to climb us back to hopefully 6,500. One of the things that comes with this airplane is 2 extra files that you're going to definitely want to import into Little Navmap. One of those files is the airplane's flying characteristics, the airplane file itself for this airplane. You're going to want to go over to Little Navmap and import the Boeing 247 file. You'll find that in the documentation. So let's see, the documentation folder. So this is what your documentation folder looks like. It's going to be over in your, I believe, either the community or the main file. I made copies of all this. So there's 2 files here at the top. Boeing 247 performance file for Little Navmap, and the second one is the radio station database. So all of the little radio stations that we're going to are listed, are going to be in Little Navmap to help you out. Okay, going into the clouds here, kind of off course again. How's our altitude? We're relatively okay. I believe that icing is a thing in this airplane. There is some anti-ice. And let's see, pitot heater. I forgot to turn that on. We're going to need that for airspeed, so the pitot tube heater. Compass light, instrument lights. Apparently, you will drain the battery if you try and turn on too many lights in this airplane. That can be a problem. And if you don't have a battery, that is a bad deal. There are, let's see, there's your landing lights, but you don't want to leave those on very much. There is cabin warning. Now, for one bit of anti-ice is going to be here, and that's your carburetor heat. And I've actually had the carburetor heat on. Okay, so that's good. That shouldn't have been there. How we doing? A little high. Let's do just a little tap of nose down trim. And I'm still way off course. We should be somewhere over there. You might notice that this, as far as flights are going, is particularly sloppy. It's certainly not up to standards that you would have with a modern jetliner. It's not a modern jetliner. This is 1930s technology. You're going to be all over the sky. And if you're too busy looking over a little nav map over here and then checking your notes, and then you start to look at a nice little PDF file that came with the airplane, then all of a sudden you're going to look up, and guess what? You're going to be completely off course, like I'm getting. I wanted you to see just how sloppy the airplane can be, because, and you know, at the time this was considered precision. So there you go. Now, one of the things is the airplane will also get a little bit out of balance if you spend too much time on fuel. So I'm going to go overhead. It might be too soon. I'm going to go and turn on that left tank for a while. We're going to juice off of the left side. So we can kind of go like this, keep the airplane balanced out a bit. Okay, we've kind of got that little sweet spot here where we're bouncing up and down here just a little bit. Maybe one more little tap on the trim. And we're starting to hold this. Get ourselves back over on course. Okay, now it's starting to go back up again. How's this? Okay, so the RPM, manifold pressure's right where it's supposed to be. Props are a little high, so we'll roll these back even more. Okay, oil pressure and oil temperature. Now these all of a sudden are starting to fall into place, but that doesn't mean they're going to stay there with this airplane. It doesn't mean it's going to stay there. So how bad is my flying today? I mean, look at this. I mean, there you go. Talk about not staying on course. And here we are. So we took off here, and we are heading towards Hanover and Allentown. You see on this old map down here, there's Allentown down there. So using the old maps, we took off from Teterboro, we did our little turn, and now we're going out to this Allentown radio station. And I'm not even coming close to being ready to turn on the radio and listen to the radio beeping at us. What you'll end up getting is basically, when you listen to the radio, from what I've read, you're going to get the letter A and the letter N in Morse code. And if you're right on on the beam that you're supposed to be on, you will hear a long, steady beep. Sorry, that's my best impression that I can do of Morse code. If you start hearing beep, beep, or beep, beep, if you start hearing anything other than the long tone, you are off course. And there's only a few courses that you get to be on too, by the way. So, you know, that's how that works. My next flight in this thing, I'll be experimenting with that. But right now I'm just trying to take you up in the air. We're going to try and get from point A to point B using a little nav map and show you how this works. Right now this is all sorts of fun. Okay, our RPM, the props are still a little bit high. I've got my props now pretty much all the way down. And you can see my prop RPM is still at 21. It's supposed to be 18. So I've gone and I've reduced my prop RPM all the way down. That can't be good. So I'm going to keep an eye on that, because I'm expecting that to just sort of all of a sudden drop, which could be bad. Okay, we've definitely started going down. So it's 6,000 feet. So I'm tapping my elevator trim up a little bit. And now let's go and get on that course heading of 280. So I'm doing a nice little turn, and I'm looking at my directional gyro there. And this should get us back on course to the Allentown radio station in the The other reason that I wanted to do this kind of a flight like this right now is show you that when it comes to complex airplanes like this, one of the cool things about flight simulators is you can learn about them in a little chunk here and a little bite here, and small, easy to understand types of chunks, as opposed to, oh my gosh, we're not using the radio navigation system completely like we're supposed to right now. That's okay. Okay, now we're coming back up to 6,500. Uh-oh. Okay, now all of a sudden, did you notice my RPMs are starting to drop here? If it starts to go below 1,800 RPM, that's going to be a problem. Oil temperature is now starting to climb a little bit. So we probably ought to open these up just a little. I'm going to do 2 clicks and see. Small little bits and pieces seems to be best with this airplane. And let's see if that all of a sudden starts raising the oil pressure through the roof. Okay, we're at 6,600. We're not climbing or descending much. I'm going to watch this prop RPM and see what it does. You probably noticed looking down here, there's this little box called radio fuses. And over here is a radio fuse box. It's actually behind this crank over here. This is your manual landing gear. Oh, there, and if you're getting too cold, over there, there is the cabin heater, if your passengers are getting too cold. And now we're now off course again. 280, come on. I really should set up a rudder trim on this too. There we go, that's better. And prop RPM, so my props are all the way down now, and I'm still above 2,100 RPM. We are doing a slight descent. That's not so awful. Let's take a look at how much fuel. So over here, we dropped to about 60. Over here, we had full. So it's dropping down a little bit too. So we're going to juice off of the left tank for a while. And of course, the passengers just think it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. They're probably having a great old time. Not much space for your overhead luggage carry-on. I don't know that they had actual rollers for roller bags in this day. Okay, now we're doing a little bit of a climb. So tap the trim back down. What's the prop RPM? It's about 19.5. So I'm still watching that. Oil pressure. Hey, it's not pegged into the red zone, or not even the red zone over on the side. You can see the fuel fluttering around. Apparently that's the way that was. Our heading is now not so bad. One of the other cool things about little nav map is you can also put real world stuff in here. So I think that one of the cool things about Microsoft Flight Simulator is the visuals. And this airplane is absolutely perfect for Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is, I mean, we get to look out the window. I'm sure that the view outside this airplane at 6,500 feet in the real world is a little different from this, but I don't think it's that different. And if you haven't been able to get on an airplane in a long time like I have, and you really like to travel, this is the next best thing. It's the next best thing. Okay, we're at 6,500. Our climb and descent is wobbling us back and forth over here, so that's good. Now all of a sudden my props are up a little bit higher. I'm not going to worry about that right now. But we're relatively decently trimmed. So, let's go and look at the radio. Our next radio station is going to be 320. So let's see if I can find 320. There's 35. There's 320. That's 320. Okay? Now then, let's go ahead and flip stuff on. What could possibly go wrong? Don't answer that. Okay, radio power on. These three switches, those switches are obsolete. They're not used. But Boeing actually left that in. Power goes on. Okay, so this tells me that we are, I believe, okay, now one of the things you heard, did you notice the difference in the tone? Every minute, it's going to change. And every minute, it changes to your, to a station identifier. So that it changed in the station identifier. Okay, how we doing? We're really pretty close to being on our course. So if we come over and look at the flight plan, so let's see, we're probably, let's go to the next page. So let's see, that's 23, there's LaGuardia, there's Allentown, so we should be approaching this area right here. This is where we're going. If you look at the radio tutorial, so if we look at how we're coming into Allentown, let's see if we've got, let's see, that would be up here for the Allentown. Okay, here's Allentown. So if I'm reading and understanding, we're kind of getting the letter A. If we were right on this 280 degree true heading, then it would be solid. But we're getting, I believe, the letter A right now. I haven't memorized this yet. And the pilots would just listen. Your goal was to hear a solid tone. That means, so we're a little bit to the, if I'm reading that right, we're a little bit to the right of our course. And let's take a look and see how this is. Well, I'd say I'm a little bit to the right of the course. So let's see, let's go ahead and make a bit of a turn here. Now I'm going to actually fly over that course and let's see if we get this steady tone. Another kind of flying that you had to do with these old airplanes is, let's say you were, the whole nation wasn't completely covered. So you didn't have complete coverage all across the nation. So you had to use what I think is probably one of the most unfortunate names in aviation, dead reckoning. Because nobody wants to be dead. Anyway, okay, we're about ready to fly over that course heading. Let's see if it changes. It's not really changing much, is it? That's the identifier signal. Okay, you notice there's an, okay, see, there's several tones in there. Up there we are. See how it's pretty much steady? That's what you want to hear. You want to hear that tone. Fly to the radio station and that's it. This is the first time I've done this, so this is like really cool stuff. Definite opportunity to geek out. Next course setting is going to be 288 degrees. Now I've flown over the other side. We're also really close to this radio station. So the next thing that's going to happen is all of a sudden this is going to fade out. This is the cone of silence. So this is basically, we're right over the radio station. And as we can't hear anything, it's sort of like, oh, it faded out. We must be right over the radio station. And if you look at little nav map, well, holy cats, look at that. We're pretty close. There must be something to this flying thing. Okay, next course setting's 288 degrees. And as we come on in here, we should probably notice that the tone is going to slowly come back. So we just passed Allentown. And you hear the tone coming back. How about that? 290. Let's see. Oil pressure is now pegged into the red zone. Let's turn it off. Close, close. And are we at 288? That's pretty good. Let's level it out. Kind of got a nice little... So that's how this radio range thing works. And I think it's a really... There's an awful lot of opportunities for a lot of fun learning here. Now, I imagine that at the end of the day, the pilots got really sick of this, that tone. I imagine by the end of the day, they were probably close to, you know, fairly homicidal as far as their headache was concerned, because that tone had to have been rather grating. How's our altitude? Okay, we're wobbling a little bit, so let's do a little bit of a tap up on the trim. So that's good. I closed my oil shutters, so really I think closed oil shutters is the thing. The props are still at 2,000, so that's good. We're climbing. No, we're still going down. One more little tap on the trim. Let's see if we can't get us climbing a bit. And not really, but fairly close. But we're relatively close to being on course now. And mostly it was just, you know, full hands-on flying with this airplane. That was life. And you just kept going and going and going. And you also had the co-pilot to help you out, you know, wobble pump the airplane while you're starting up, listen to the frequency, do the navigation, while the other pilot literally was hands on the stick the whole time. Talking about, again about the history of this airplane, we could carry 10 passengers. We could be about 189 miles per hour. So how are we doing as far as our speed? Well, we're a little on the slow side right now. Probably could be doing a little bit better. Yeah, okay, well. Let's see, our maximum speed was 225. I don't think so. We're also a little on the heavy. I loaded up, I put every passenger is aboard. Let's see, the maximum takeoff weight, 13,650 pounds. As a comparison, when I'm flying the MD-11, as a full cargo flight, is an MD-11, we're carrying upwards 185 to 190,000 pounds. So that's how much more, and we were going a lot faster, and we could go, you know, a quarter of the way around the world or more. I think that some of the longer range MD-11s could make them from Mumbai to Atlanta or something. So maybe that, at least according to a video I saw, it could be they probably did a stop along the way and their final destination was Atlanta. The YouTube videos from air clips of the MD-11 I think are really good. So if you're trying to learn the MD-11, that's actually those clips. They did a circuit from, what was it? Frankfurt, Mumbai, Hong Kong, an unpronounceable Russian town to back to Frankfurt. So like 4 videos, and you got to see, you know, an awful lot of the setup and operation of that airplane. Let's see, so 10 passengers, the range on this airplane, 647 miles. Our flight plan for today is 369, so we're basically going halfway. We're going halfway. As far as the flight, so United Airlines flew this airplane. I believe they flew it on that big red route that you see there. This was the airplane that they flew across country. And back then, a one-way airfare from New York to Chicago with a stop in Cleveland was $47.95. That is $1,006 in 2021 prices. So that's kind of what you had there. Their actual flight that they did was, where is the timetable page? There's the timetable page. So the timetable page that you can get, and these are available online. So if you take a look, this is what we're doing right here. We're doing this little bit right here. United Flight 5 taking off at 10 a.m. from New York's Teterboro Airport, and we go to Cleveland, and I believe there is a stop in Toledo, but that was only if you were taking Flight 15 and Flight 9. So it would have been direct service from Cleveland to Chicago. And if the thing about these is this is the way train timetables looked in the good old days. And so one of the things is airlines, you know, they looked an awful lot like a train timetable. Of course, now they look substantially different, but still. Quick check. Okay, we've climbed too much. We're at 7,000 feet. And let's see. Oil pressure is still up there. We're going to drop that down. I've tapped this down one more. See if we can't lose about 500 feet. So there's our schedule. So it was going to be 10 o'clock at Cleveland. Let's see, Cleveland, they would have stopped at, well, I think that they need to be there before 12:54 because that's when they're departing. And then that's when they're departing for Chicago. So that's when they would get to Chicago. And I believe then Chicago would then depart for its next stop at 2. So this is a good 2-hour flight. As far as airfare, so New York to Chicago, there's that $47. They were really, a lot of this was, please buy a round-trip ticket. They had big discounts for their round-trip tickets, is part of what they had there. And again, you know, one of the things is it's particularly amazing to me to see just how much inflation, you know, from 1935 to 2021, there actually is today. Back in 1935, if you were going to the theater, you would have been going to see The Bride of Frankenstein with Boris Karloff. There was a spy movie out that came out called The 39 Steps. And then another very big movie of the day was Clark Gable and Charles Laughton in Mutiny on the Bounty. Definitely some pretty classic movies of the day, for sure. If you were listening to the radio, the top song, just basic internet search showed Fred Astaire's song Cheek to Cheek. That was from a movie called, I believe it was Top Hat or something like that. I've got to go and look that up. Followed by, I think it was a religious song, Circle Be Unbroken from the Carter Family, and Eddie Duckett played Lovely to Look At. And those were some of the cool things that you got back in 1935. Of course, the pilot really didn't need to spend time thinking about that. The pilot needed to keep the airplane trimmed because now we have gone 200 feet on the other side of where we're supposed to be. And I haven't even looked at little nav map in the last few minutes. So how far off course are we this time? Shall we look? Eek. Yeah, off course here. So it was definitely a full-time job. Definitely a full-time job to stay on course. So back to 284 degrees, our next checkpoint in the sky. Now this is one of those areas, there was a real distance here between our two waypoints here. So this would be one of those places where you had to do a little bit of dead reckoning with your flying because you would have dropped off. You would have lost one radio frequency and it would have been a while before you picked up the other one. So you would have basically done the old distance equals the rate times the time computation. So we have to go 104 nautical miles. We are going 160 miles. You do the math to figure out that that should take you 17 minutes or something like that. So if 17 minutes went by, and you still hadn't picked up the radio, chances are you're off course, and that's a bad deal. One of the things that you're also probably going to notice is an awful lot of the radio facilities that we were talking about. A lot of these maps are basically in the United States. That's because this was in the early days of aviation. weren't an awful lot of these set up around the world. This is where all of this was developed. That being said, if you take a look at the chart, at the data, the people from Wing 42 have populated their radio data file. So basically, you would there are radio stations, fictional radio stations, around the world. So you don't just have to fly this in the United States. Now, the old vintage maps are from the United States because there weren't old vintage maps from around the world, but there are old vintage maps that you can, there are radio stations that you can use around the world. So as you're looking, if you've imported the data correctly into little nav map, as we come in here, we are coming over here to this small town here. This is BF, what is that, Buffalo? No, Bellefonte, whatever. Near State College, Pennsylvania, I think. So, obviously, little nav map is showing the VOR here. But it's also showing this little thing here. It's going to be shown as a TACAN, which is old military. And this is going to be the radio. So, if we want, we would go to 224. Shall we turn on the beeper again? So let's look at 224. I'm just going to get my map out here and see how far I am off course. Well, we're not too bad, actually. So let's go up here, and now what we need is 224. So let's dial this down. There's 34. There's 27. There's 25. So we need to change the band. Then do this up to look for 224. There's 22. That's 225. So if we would tune it, there is 224. And tuning this thing's going to be a little hard. Okay, that's got to be 224. So we can come down here and we're going to turn the power back on and turn the power up here. I don't know if that's our radio station or not. If it is, we're like pretty close to on the beam here. There's just a slight little beep. So what we could do is we are hopefully going to the radio station BF. So let's go and so come on over here, and at the top of this PDF, let's find out what BF is. Hopefully it's not full of BS. Morse code. This is BF. Okay, did you hear it? We had a long and 3 shorts, and then F was 2 shorts, a long, and a short. So we are listening to BF. Okay, this is what's called getting really, really lucky. I wish I could say that I planned it this way, but I didn't. Need to get a little bit more like this. We're not quite on our core setting here. Okay, so guess what I haven't done in a while? We have not looked at our fuel. All right, we are now down to about 120. Okay, so looking over here, in the auxiliary, we've got 60. In the main right, we should have 70. So maybe let's go ahead and we're going to go off of the right main for a while. Now, I'm sure that they did some real math, and so they would bounce back and forth and keep the airplane perfectly in balance. We're just making this up as we go. But there you go. So we're on a beam. Now then, another thing that you could do is you could listen to music. So back in the day, before we had internet radio, we had FM radio. And back before we had FM radio, we had AM radio. And if you look along along the course here, if you import all the data, this shows that there is a radio station up here at Williamsport, WRAK, the hot hits of 1935. I don't think they talk like that. Anyway, so here's WRAK 1370 AM. So why don't we go up here and let's see what we pick up at 1370 AM. I'm going to turn this down. So let's dial this all the way down. So, no, we need to go the other way. How far down does this band go? There's 19. So we need to find 1370. This is the AM radio dial. So we're looking for 1370. Oh, there's 1200. So we can't go. We got to dial this one. Oops, I think I missed. I didn't do that right. So dial this again. There's 1200. I'm doing something wrong here. There's I recognize these as old AM radio bands. Was it 1370? Yes, 1370 is WRAK. You know what? We better look down here and make sure. Oil temperature, oil pressure are good. Altitude's relatively good. Heading, we're getting off of our course heading. Let's try 1240. Let's try WRSC at State College, Pennsylvania. At State College. I know I can find that. Because there was oh, maybe this stops at 1200? Yeah, it stopped at 1200. Okay, so let's change the band. 1750. Let's see if we can't do 1370 here. Okay, there's 1350. And then dial this. There is 1370. Let's see if we hear music. Okay, if it doesn't work, there is a chance that you may have burst a fuse. If we don't hear anything, either that or I screwed up. So Radio Master, it looks like the fuses are good. So I didn't burst a fuse. Maybe I just don't know how to tune a radio. Or maybe we're out of range. Maybe we're out of range. Although I can't imagine that we really are. Let's see, we should get 1240 AM. Let's dial this down to 1240 AM. Okay, there's 1225, 1250, 1225. Leave it right about there. We'll leave it on and leave the volume up, and we'll see if we can't pick up. We'll see if we can pick up WRSC when we get closer to State College. And I need to get back on course. How's our altitude? Our altitude is 6,500. That's good. Props are still a little high, but that's okay. Oil pressure and oil temperature aren't freaking out. So we're relatively trimmed up here. Now again, I'm just learning this stuff as I go along. I may have forgotten to flip a button here. But here we are coming up here to Sunbury. And this is one of the things I like about this map here, is if you're out wanting to be a virtual tourist, you know, you're stuck at home like most people, you know, you get to see, there is Sunbury with Selland's Grove Airport. There's a small airport that we should see coming up here. So if I can get us back on course, we should see the Selland's Grove Airport coming up here. Well, watch. It'll be, of course, behind a cloud, because whenever you want to go and do any kind of touristy stuff in a flight simulator, there's always a cloud in the way. I mean, they design it for that. Okay, altitude's not bad. Course is getting closer to being where we're supposed to be. We should be seeing a river, and I think I see a river here. The airport is just going to be on the other side of the river, probably behind that cloud right over there. So let's get back on our course and see if we can't see the Selins Grove Airport. So let's see, we've been going on now for about an hour and 20 minutes here on this part of the recording. I think that probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going, see if I can't pick up an AM radio station. Obviously, we've got a ways to go here. So as we come up here, we've still got a lot of flying to do. I would expect that I'm going to we'll pick it up somewhere here in this zone here. Maybe I'll try and restart the recording here and see if we can't pick up WLBW. You know? Now, here's something here. Up here, if you look up here, I thought I saw... So there was Rochester. I thought I saw a radio station that had just 3 letters. Yeah, WGR Radio. Okay, so WGR Radio, notice how it's just, 3 letters? Back in the day, and this may still be the day, this would be what is called a clear channel radio station. Okay, and across the United States, there were some clear channel radio stations that you could go and pick up. And at night, you could go and you could listen to a clear channel radio station from hundreds of miles away. And if the atmosphere was right, you could listen to it 1,000 miles away. In Colorado, I once listened to a clear channel radio station from Kansas and California. So you could actually pick up those very big radio stations. So there's a chance that maybe we could pick up a clear channel radio station too. A lot of these other radio stations, they had to reduce power during the day and also during the night. They also had special patterns so they wouldn't affect other people, whereas the clear channels just got to broadcast at 50,000 watts all over the place. So we'll try and pick up a few more radio stations while we're stopped. In fact, if I pick up a radio station, we'll start the recording and say, hey, see, I was right, there's a radio station. But right now, we're going to come over the river here and see if we can't see the Selins Grove Airport. I think that's it. Maybe not. Thought it was supposed to be going in the other direction. That does look like it. Yep, that's an airport. Yep, that's it. We're going to go right over the end of the runway. So we actually did find the runway, find the airport here. Yep, there's the bridge. And there's the airport. Okay, so we found an airport. We've got the navigation radios working. Keep flying if you're flying along with me right now. If I manage to pick up a radio station, we'll restart the recording. If I don't, we'll pick it up about 50 miles outside of Cleveland. So good luck. Don't give up. No, I meant for this camera shot. Hey, welcome back. Okay, figured out something here. We are coming up close to that to this town state college that we were talking about earlier, and WPSC 1240 AM radio. I finally picked it up. Okay, so there's a switch that you have to flip. So watch this, CW. Okay, this just got even more geeky fun. Okay. If you're a live streamer, I've heard from another live streamer who's been in touch with the developers that this music is not going to get you in trouble with the music police. So you get to sit here and just geek out to 1930s era music on the radio station. So I'm really looking forward to just sitting in here and doing this. We are coming up here on State College, and we got to make a turn here to 291 degrees. So I'm a little bit off course. I also checked my course heading with the BF radio station. It stands for Belfort. And so there's the small town there. So I got to do a bit of a turn over here. We're about ready to make that turn. We still have a ways to go. We are about not even halfway there as we go past State College, Pennsylvania on our vintage United Airlines flight from 1935. I imagine the passengers had fun listening to the radio too. We'll stop and start. Oops, I mean to put it there, the better button, sorry. Welcome back. I know you didn't go very far, but I gotta tell you, the flight has been going very well. Figuring out the music button here was a good idea. I suppose if I read the little line about the CW button here, we would have actually turned that off and been able to listen to the radio. And we're doing really good. We are getting pretty close. Let me give you an idea of where we are. So we're coming up on where the top of descent was supposed to be here on our flight path. As you can see, I've kind of been all over the place. Went back to the galley and got a sandwich, and getting the sandwich there basically meant, you know, off course again, no autopilot, so there you go. Always good to have a co-pilot for this. So we're coming up here. That looks pretty good. How are we doing? Our altitude's been, well, I've been slowly losing a little bit of altitude actually on this one. Been slowly getting ready for our descent here too. We are just coming up to the actual top of descent. So at least as far as the little nav map goes. Over here, so let's look at the approach here at the airport. We got all sorts of interesting runways here. Based on real world weather, Cleveland is landing on the 24s. Not even to bother dialing in an ILS or anything like that. 28 though is kind of interesting here. So that might be kind of a nice little runway for us to go for. So I'm going to go for runway 281 degrees. Let's see, the other thing to look at, excuse the big cough there, it was a really good lunch. 800 feet. So let's do our final approach altitude. Why do we make that around, how about 1,500 feet? So we're going to go to 1,500 feet. Use that as a traffic pattern altitude. And let's see, how we doing here? Well, we're going to the north here again. But we probably ought to start thinking about going down just a little bit. Descent. So descent manifold pressure goes down to 16 inches. So your descent, you're going to roll the throttles back to 1,600 inches of mercury, so that's that. And you descend at about 1,800 feet per minute. You're going to want the speed to go down to about 130 knots on this one. Reset the altimeters if you're in real world weather, and also check your directional gyro. That's kind of an important thing to do too. So as we come on over here, we're past our little top of descent. It's 4,000 feet is what I thought I said we were. Yeah, so we're going to go down to 1,500. I'm choosing 1,500 because it's going to be easy to see. So this is our view right now. We're going to be able to look down there and easily see that. So it's kind of hard to see certain things in flight simulators. So that's why I choose what I call the big numbers. And it might not be the exact traffic pattern altitude according to FAR regulations and stuff, but it's easy for me to see. So, and if I'm not flying on VATSIM or anything like that, sort of like, hey, we get to make up our own rules. So let's go ahead and get ready to roll those throttles back. Throttles are going to go down, and we're going to go and roll this back to 13 inches of mercury according to this. There's about 14. And we're going to push the nose down just a little bit here because we don't want to lose too much speed. Now there's also a radio station here, CV, and CV is 344. So let's see here, that's 344. Let's see, that would be, I believe, up here. No, there's 4. Nope, it's gonna be the next one. So changing the bands is important. I don't think I'm going to hit that one right now, so we'll just leave the music in there because we got to concentrate here. Not that we were going to get an ILS or anything like that. Descending pretty fast here. And there's basically an interstate highway that we can kind of follow on over to the airport. Now it's actually climbing. We don't want to do that because we'd stall out. There's a little bit better heading towards the airport. But I did notice that there is a updated version of Cleveland Hopkins Airport at flightsim.to. So we'll see how the new airport looks. I think they kind of split it up, so they've got one with operating jetways now, which is kind of cool. Okay, there we go. Now we're going down like a good airplane. Let's see, if you remember our schedule, so if we look over at the schedule here, the flight to Chicago takes off at 12:54, so time check shows it's 12:10. So we're relatively even on time on this too, aren't we? Okay, we're descending a little bit too fast there, airplane. In fact, we're coming up on 1250. 2,500, excuse me, not 1250. I was thinking a little bit about a little bit of an afternoon fun flight for myself that I was going to do with the MD-11. I have to tell you, that is still just become one of my absolute favorite airplanes. The MD-11. Okay, there's about 200 feet per minute. That's a little bit better. I don't want to descend awfully fast here. How's our speed? Our speed is 150. According to what I saw, we want to go and be about 130. We've also descended a bit, so mixture rich as you go down. So mixture just went to rich. How is our oil? Oh, look at that. Oil pressure is all the way down. Oil temperature is going up. Let's go ahead and we're going to go and open these up. So got to keep watching that. If we were in the world of if we had failures and stuff turned on, I think we'd be in pretty big trouble there. We're now essentially, thanks to little nav map, kind of heading right in the right direction here. So if you're like me and you tend to, you know, when you're in cruise, you get comfortable in your gaming chair, but you got, particularly if you have a set of rudder pedals, and I do suggest rudder pedals, and a good set of controls. Doesn't have to be the top line set of controls, but a good set of controls for an airplane like this. That's a really good thing to do. I use the Thrustmaster Airbus stick and throttle system, so that's a really good one. But one of the things I've done is, you know, the hat switch that's up there, this throttle only has one hat switch. So what I've done is I've actually stopped the hat. That's not a hat switch for views anymore. What that is up and down is elevator trim, and right and left is aileron trim. Hey, I see a runway here. So landing, propellers go to full forward. We got to do landing gear. Shall we do landing gear? There comes our landing gear. And there's our runway. We're descending way too fast. Probably going to need a little bit more throttle on this one because we got a lot more drag. And here's 1,500 feet. This was what I called my big number. So you can see from sitting here on a wide view, I can just look down at the altimeter and I can see it and it looks good. So I'm doing some, I'm kind of trimming the pressure off the nose here, because I really want to hold 1,000. Speed's coming down, so we're going to add a little bit of throttle here. Airplane's starting to jitter just a little bit. It gets a little bit rumbly when you start getting close to landing. And we're holding 1,500. That's pretty good. Landing speed on this airplane's about 65, so it's a good thing. Look over here and see where that 65 is going to be. So we can bring our throttles back just a bit. And hold 1,500 because we need our speed to start getting down. Approaching about 80 knots for your final approach, and then you touch down about 65, if I've read everything correctly. I really kind of think I'm a little bit geeky right now about the music that that they've got going on. It really does add to the period. Little bit more trim here to hold that altitude. There's 80, so add just a little bit of throttle there. Doing a little bit of nose up. And we've started going down a bit here. So I let myself get a little bit low. Airplane-wise, again, if you're just gonna start out on this, I do recommend turn off all the engine failures on this airplane. You will be happy that you did. And then as you get better with this airplane, you can go and start redoing those sorts of things. Okay, slowly getting our trim back to neutral. So I'll be holding the stick a little bit more here. And it looks like we're pretty good. How's our speed? A little bit fast here at the moment. So we'll roll these throttles back. Again, touching down at about 65. I think with the vintage airplane like this, what they did with the old radio stations, the range finding, is just flight simulator brilliance. So, you know, 3 cheers to Wing 42. The other cool part about this is they've made this airplane, as far as a payware airplane, massively affordable. You know, I think other developers would get $50 US more. This thing is $20 US. I mean, they're making this available to a lot of people that would be priced out of an airplane of this kind of quality. And so, again, 3 cheers to the developers on this. And they're not sponsoring the video. This is what I'm saying. I don't have to say this. And here we are coming on in, reducing our throttles a bit more. Oil pressure, oil temperature's good. Doesn't look like we're gonna lose those at the last minute. All nicely set up here. 80 knots on super duper final. Down we go. Hoping for a little bit of butter on this landing. It's a shorter than usual runway, but that's great for an airplane like this. So, what to do next? Well, I think the next thing that you might want to do is continue your flight on to Chicago if you want to follow the United service, or fly your own favorite flight. And there's our target there. Landing long because we're hunting for butter. We've landed. Tails down. It's a tail dragger, so one of the things is you're very, very cautious about your use of brakes with an airplane like this. We don't want to overtax the generator. I'm going to turn off the radio. I have no idea if that's a thing on this airplane. Okay, get your throttles back up. Make sure they don't go below 1,000 RPM. Otherwise, your engines are going to stall out on you. So, you know, you don't want that to happen. I'm going to go and put my trim back to normal. We got a little taxiway here. And again, this airplane does not turn on a dime. So... And we're just going over to this hangar over here. This looks like a great hangar for a vintage airplane like this. Oh, this is a NASA hangar, it looks like. Is that a NASA logo? I have no idea. That is a NASA logo. This is the Glenn Research Center. I think that they ought to have, are we about to take out that sign? We took out that sign. Like I said, this airplane does not turn on a dime. Well, that's okay. I'm sure somebody will come and fix that sign for us. And welcome to the Glenn Research Center, where we have a nice vintage flight. Brakes. That looks good. How about parking brakes? Okay, there's our parking brakes. So for shutdown on this airplane, parking brakes, elevator and aileron trim, we're gonna return these to normal. So gonna put that to normal there. Probably they would have been doing this on landing. Aileron trim is good too. So all that looks good. So let's see, mixture. Let's see the props. And then the throttles. And now mixture goes to idle cutoff. We'll also close these. Well, we'll leave those right there. Maybe they're a little warm. Okay, so that's good. We're gonna come up here and do the magnetos. Off, off. We're gonna turn off the ignition. We're gonna turn off the radio. We're gonna turn these lights off. And we're gonna go ahead and pull the power. And our airplane is ready to go. So we can come up over here and grab this. And we can go and click all the green people, all the passengers, and make the green people red people. Sometimes clicking them is hard. So let's see if I can click this guy. All right, there we go. And we're going to click this guy, and that guy, and that guy, and that guy. There's our passengers, and make it so. Well, we'll also put in some wheel chocks. And now they're going to go, and if you look over here, they're going to open up the door, and then our passengers are going to get off. And there's the stairs are going to pop out, and we did it. How about that? So, a couple of things. It was so much fun learning about the radios. This was the first time I did that. And I kind of decided to do the video this way because I think it's important to show, learning actually happens with these things, and it's okay to experiment with airplanes like this. A little nav map is absolutely outstanding. So the United flight would continue on. It would take off from Cleveland and go to Chicago. And so you could continue this flight and continue on to Chicago. You could look up some other flights, some vintage flights for this. The other thing you could do is become a Pathfinder and check out some of these flights around your neighborhood too. The developers said that they put these radio stations all over the world. So let's just go and see what we have. Let's go and look in the UK. Let's see what we have. Okay, so let's see if there are any TACAN types of stations here that you can go to. I'm not sure how that would work. I don't see. So there's Lincoln, Doncaster, there's Sheffield. I'm not sure where that would be, but they said that there's going to be these kinds of radio stations. Oh, here we go. I think that that's it. So here you go around London. So here is Watford. Here's Bovingdon. I didn't say that right. There's Oxford. Even I can say Oxford correctly. So yeah, look at this. We're starting to see some of the TACAN types of stations there. Here's one for Bristol. So you can fly around the UK. I'm sure that this is also the case. Let's go over here let's see, there's Bremen. Let's see, there's Amsterdam. So here is Frankfurt. I wanted to take a look at Frankfurt. Yeah, okay. Here is a radio station around Frankfurt. So again, they have scattered some fictional types of these radio stations around the world. So you're going to be able to use this in your neighborhood too. And that'll be the last thing that I'll say is when you can, fly airplanes like this in your own neighborhood, in your own backyard, so that you start recognizing some of your so you get to recognize some of your own landmarks. I think that that's a really important part, especially of flying right here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I hope that this was a little bit of help to you. I hope that this was a little bit of fun. As always, when I do these videos, it's not about the right way versus the wrong way. This is simply what works for me. I'm still really new here on YouTube, and so that means I read every comment and every question. So if you've got comments and questions, I can't wait to read what it is that you've got to say. I also hope that maybe you'll consider joining us over on the Spy Flight on Twitch sometime. We're flying as friends together all over the world in both Microsoft Flight Simulator and X-Plane. We're on VATSIM. We also recently started learning how to fly on IVAO. So we fly Tuesday through Sunday, and you'll find us usually taking off about 1900 Zulu. And I also do some spy stories over on Amazon. We'll talk about that. As I mentioned, I'm new here in the world of YouTube, so I'm not quite big enough to be monetized. If you liked what you saw and want to support, the best way that you can do that is just come on over and follow and fly along with us, and you could even subscribe over on Twitch, and that's a way to show support. In the meantime, as always, I like to say thank you very much for watching these videos. I hope you had as much fun discovering the cool stuff about the Boeing 247D as I did. And I will see you again really soon here on YouTube and even sooner on Twitch. Stay healthy, stay safe, and thanks for watching. Cheers.